A woman of destructive intent is not always loud. Sometimes she is subtle, a whisper behind a closed door, a raised eyebrow during a conversation, or a carefully timed comment that lingers in your mind long after she's gone. She does not march in with fire and fury. She erodes unity drop by drop, and you won't always notice it until the bonds around you begin to crumble. She finds power in separation. She does not build bridges between people, she builds walls, then paints murals of blame on them. Under her influence, you may begin to question those closest to you, your friends, your mentors, your family. She will tell you that they don't understand you, that they are using you, that they are holding you back. And once those thoughts take root, division begins its quiet work. What makes this woman dangerous is not simply her words, it's her motives. She doesn't seek peace, she seeks control, and she knows that isolated people are the easiest to dominate. So she fractures your social support, chips away at your trust in others, and positions herself as your only confidant. She doesn't unify, she isolates, and then she dominates. You will notice that when she enters a room, harmony departs. Friends stop talking, partnerships become strained, teams become cliques. She speaks kindly to both sides of a disagreement, yet fuels the fire between them. Her influence leaves people suspicious, confused, emotionally drained, and often blaming themselves. A truly good woman inspires men and women alike to come together, solve problems, and forgive flaws. But this kind of woman, the toxic, divisive one, relishes in discord. She does not resolve issues, she multiplies them, cloaked in charm or false innocence. Ask yourself this: are the people in your life drawing closer together, becoming stronger, more honest, more united, or are they drifting apart, becoming defensive, distrustful, and cynical? If it's the latter, someone near you is planting seeds of division. And that someone may be much closer than you think. Unity is the soil in which purpose grows. Division is the toxin that kills it. Watch carefully who waters which. Every man who rises to greatness does so by identifying, nurturing, and protecting a definite chief, aim a central purpose that governs his decisions, fuels his ambition, and sharpens his focus. Without this inner compass, he is like a ship without a rudder, at the mercy of every wave, easily pulled off course. A destructive woman does not just fail to support that purpose, she becomes the storm that tears it apart. She may not attack your dream directly. Instead, she will question it not with curiosity, but with cynicism. Do you really think that will work? Isn't that too risky? Shouldn't you just be happy with what you have? These questions don't come from a place of love. They come from a place of fear, jealousy, or control. She doesn't want you to grow because your growth threatens her ability to manipulate you. You will notice that the more time you spend with her, the more your goals begin to blur. What once burned like a fire in your chest now flickers like a candle in the wind. She interrupts your flow, distracts you from your discipline, and shames your ambitions as selfish or unrealistic. You begin to trade purpose for approval, progress for comfort, and passion for peacekeeping. The most dangerous part, you may start to think this is normal, that the slow death of your dream is the price of love, or stability, or peace in the home. It is not. It is the price of being manipulated by someone who sees your purpose as competition. And the longer you stay in that environment, the more you will forget what you once believed you were born to do. A destructive woman will not encourage your journey. She will stall it with endless drama, emotional sabotage, or shallow pleasures that feel good in the moment, but leave you hollow in the long run. She may smile at your ambition in public, but scoff at it in private. She may pretend to be supportive as long as your progress doesn't outgrow her comfort zone. A woman aligned with purpose strengthens it. She asks the hard questions that sharpen your vision, not dull it. She stands with you when the world resists your dream. She respects your time, your work, and your silence. The wrong woman, however, views your purpose as a threat because a man with purpose cannot be controlled. A man with purpose is dangerous to her illusion of power. The world will already test your will. Do not let your own home become the battlefield. If she cannot walk beside your mission, do not let her sleep beside your soul. Purpose is the foundation of your legacy, and anyone who pulls you from it subtly or directly is not your partner. She is your downfall, dressed in affection. A man's greatness is not born from comfort, it is born from courage. And courage is not the absence of fear, but the ability to act in spite of it. A woman who elevates a man truly elevates him, will speak to the strength within him, not the weakness. She will challenge him to rise, not retreat. But a destructive woman whispers a different message. Her language is fear, and her voice becomes louder every time you hesitate. This woman does not build, she binds. Her words, her looks, even her silences carry the subtle poison of doubt. Are you sure this is a good idea? What if it doesn't work? Do you really want to risk everything? These are not the cautions of wisdom, they are the weapons of fear masquerading as concern. To the outside world, she may appear protective, caring, even loving. But beneath the surface, she is reinforcing a script of limitation, one that says it is better to stay small, stay safe, stay quiet. And over time, you begin to internalize her doubts as your own. The boundaries she builds become your new comfort zone. And every dream that once felt possible begins to feel like a dangerous fantasy. You'll notice she rarely celebrates risk. She warns against anything uncertain, even when the uncertainty contains opportunity. Her world is defined by what could go wrong, never by what could go right. She will remind you of your failures, but never of your resilience. She will catalogue your mistakes, but erase your progress. She will speak of danger, but never of reward. And here's the real danger. When a man is repeatedly exposed to fear, he begins to see the world through her eyes. He doubts himself, second, guesses his instincts, and eventually loses the fire that once made him bold. He stops pursuing the extraordinary and settles for the comfortable because the voice beside him told him that the cost of greatness was too high. Faith is oxygen for the soul. It is the belief that something better is possible, even when the path is unclear. A woman of faith, not religion, but true inner belief, speaks life into her man's ambition. She reminds him of who he is when the world forgets. She stands firm when fear arrives at the door. But the wrong woman will always amplify that fear, because a fearful man is easier to control than a free one. She may say she wants the best for you, but watch her actions. Does she encourage your expansion or protect her comfort? Does she call you into greatness or lure you back into mediocrity with guilt, insecurity, or emotional dependency? If she responds to your dreams with fear, your ideas with sarcasm, your confidence with suspicion, take note. A woman who feeds fear instead of faith will never support a man's mission. She doesn't want you to soar. She wants you to stay within reach. And remember this, fear is contagious, but so is faith. Choose the woman whose presence multiplies your courage. Choose the voice that reminds you why you started when the path gets dark. Because the woman beside you will either magnify your destiny or suffocate it, one fearful whisper at a time. Not all control is physical. The most dangerous kind is invisible, woven silently through tone, timing, and tension. A destructive woman does not need to shout, threaten, or demand to dominate you. Her greatest weapon is emotional manipulation, and she wields it like a master sculptor, reshaping your thoughts, rewriting your memories, and warping your sense of reality, one subtle moment at a time. She doesn't tell you what to think. Instead, she leads you to conclusions she's already planted. She doesn't forbid your decisions. She just makes you feel so guilty, uncertain, or ashamed for wanting what you want that you eventually stop trying. And the scariest part, you don't even realize it's happening not at first. She knows how to cry when it's most strategic. Not when she's hurt, but when she's losing control. Her tears are not always expressions of vulnerability. They are tools of persuasion. When you confront her about a boundary crossed or a behavior repeated, she shifts the spotlight from her actions to your lack of empathy. Suddenly, you're the one apologizing for having standards. She withholds affection when you need connection, and floods you with it when you're slipping away. She creates emotional highs so addictive, and emotional lows so punishing, that you start living for her approval without even knowing it. One day you find yourself asking, "What can I do to keep her happy?" rather than, "Is this right for me?" That's the moment you're no longer in a relationship, you're in a prison with velvet walls. You'll notice that logic never wins with her. You can bring facts, timelines, receipts, and somehow you'll still leave the conversation confused, apologetic, or doubting your own perception. This is not a flaw in your communication. This is a feature of her control. Her goal isn't clarity, it's confusion, because a confused man is easier to manipulate than a confident one. Gaslighting is one of her favorite tools. She will deny what she said, reframe what she did, and make you question what you clearly experienced. She'll say things like, "You're too sensitive," or "I never said that," or "You always twist my words." And if you push back too hard, she'll play the victim, flipping the narrative so that your attempt to seek truth is framed as an attack. This kind of emotional warfare erodes your soul. Over time, you lose confidence in your own judgment. You hesitate to speak. You walk on eggshells. You begin to shrink not because you're weak, but because you've been conditioned to equate strength with conflict. And deep down, you fear that being fully yourself might mean losing her completely. But here is the truth. A woman who truly loves you will never manipulate your emotions to gain power. She won't weaponize her affection. She won't use silence as punishment. She won't create chaos and then blame your reaction to it. Instead, she will communicate openly, take responsibility when she is wrong, and make you feel safe even when you disagree. The emotionally manipulative woman does not want a partner. She wants a puppet. And the more you compromise your truth to avoid her wrath, the more you become one. Your peace is priceless. Your clarity is sacred. And no woman, no matter how beautiful or charismatic, is worth sacrificing your sanity. If you find yourself constantly explaining, defending, or apologizing for who you're not in love. You're under control. Escape begins with awareness. Freedom begins with boundaries. And healing begins when you stop explaining your pain and start honoring your truth. A man's weakness is not always in his strength, but in how he forgets to guard it. Every man has moments of doubt, seasons of fatigue, and internal battles that few ever see. In the hands of a worthy woman, those moments become spaces for healing and reflection. But in the hands of a destructive woman, those same vulnerabilities become tools, ways for her to gain leverage, control, and ultimately, power over you. She doesn't want you strong, not truly. Strength means independence, clarity, movement, and above all, the ability to walk away from anything or anyone who threatens your growth. That terrifies her, because when a man rises into his full power, she can no longer manipulate him. And so, instead of building you up, she subtly benefits every time you stay down. She may appear supportive on the surface. She may say the right things: I believe in you, I'm proud of you, I want you to succeed. But watch what happens when you actually start succeeding. When you start regaining your confidence, when your voice gets firmer, your focus sharper, your time more valuable, that's when the sabotage begins. She might not oppose your growth directly. Instead, she will distract you from it. She'll create unnecessary drama before your important moments. She'll need rescuing every time you find your rhythm. She'll grow cold or distant when you start winning, not because she doesn't love you, but because your strength threatens the system she's built, one in which your neediness benefits her position. When you are uncertain, she becomes your compass. When you are wounded, she becomes your caretaker. When you are emotionally unstable, she becomes your anchor, but not out of love, out of necessity, because the weaker you become, the more essential she feels. And that is her trap. There is no partnership here, only dependence. She becomes the one thing you think you can't live without, and that illusion grows stronger each time you sacrifice your integrity just to maintain her comfort. You'll begin to notice patterns. She consoles you when you're broken, but grows cold when you're bold. She encourages you when you're stagnant, but questions you when you're driven. She's available when you're uncertain, but strangely absent when you're clear. These are not coincidences, they are strategies, because every time you lean on her in weakness, she grows more rooted in your life, not as your equal, but as your handler. Understand this: the right woman supports your rise, even if it means she has to grow with you or risk being left behind. The wrong woman, however, prefers you small, confused, and dependent because in your weakness she feels strong. She profits from your emotional fatigue, from your self-doubt, from the lies you start telling yourself to preserve the relationship. And she knows that as long as you're busy surviving her emotional climate, you'll never have the energy to pursue your mission. This kind of woman may not look like the enemy, but she will quietly become the architect of your stagnation. She will keep you in cycles of guilt and gratitude, guilty for not giving her more, grateful that she stayed despite your flaws. But those flaws are often the very struggles she's helped to create, or at least magnify for her own advantage. If you find that your weaknesses are always on display, always the subject of correction or pity, and never the starting point of growth, then understand, you are not in a relationship. You are in an emotional ecosystem that rewards your fragility and punishes your strength. And no man can rise while being rewarded for staying low. True love does not profit from weakness. It calls you higher and meets you there. The measure of any person's maturity is not how they act when things go well, but how they respond when they are wrong. Accountability is the foundation of growth. It requires humility, emotional strength, and the willingness to confront uncomfortable truths. A woman of character embraces it, but the toxic woman, the destructive woman, runs from it like a shadow fleeing the light. To her, being wrong is not just unpleasant, it's unbearable. It threatens the carefully constructed image she presents to the world, and worse, to herself. So rather than own her faults, she distorts the facts. She changes the subject. She shifts the blame to you, to your tone, to your timing, to your past mistakes. Anything to avoid the simple, powerful words, "I was wrong." When you bring up an issue even gently, she flips the script. The conversation is no longer about her behavior. It becomes about your reaction to it. You're too intense, too sensitive, too controlling. Somehow, her betrayal becomes your failure. Her neglect becomes your insecurity. Her manipulation becomes your paranoia, and if you persist, she escalates. She may cry, stonewall, explode in anger, or retreat into icy silence, not because she's overwhelmed by emotion, but because she's weaponizing it. She has learned that if she becomes emotional enough, loud enough, wounded enough, she can derail the conversation entirely. Accountability disappears beneath the fog of chaos. Pay attention to her patterns. Does she apologize without changing? Does she make excuses instead of progress? Does she reference old wounds to deflect from present ones? Does she shift between victim and aggressor depending on what protects her ego best? This kind of woman does not argue to resolve, she argues to escape. Every disagreement becomes a performance, and every performance is designed to distract from the one truth she cannot face, that she is not always right, and sometimes she is the problem. You'll often find that she has a long history of broken friendships, strained family ties, or past partners she claims were toxic, crazy, or obsessive. And notice how none of those relationships ever ended because of her choices. In her world, she is forever the victim, a misunderstood soul surrounded by people who never appreciated her. And you, if you're not careful, become just another name on her list of blame. Why does she run from accountability? Because accountability leads to change, and change requires self-confrontation. But she is not ready to face herself. Her identity is built on denial, defensiveness, and the ability to twist any situation until she comes out clean. Accountability is a mirror, and she would rather break it than look into it. The tragic part is, you may start to mirror her behavior. In defending yourself against her projections, you might become reactive, bitter, or avoidant. You may begin to doubt your own instincts, water down your truth, or silence yourself just to keep the peace. But silence is not peace, it is quiet submission, and every time you let her off the hook, you reinforce her illusion that she is blameless. A relationship without accountability is a slow emotional death, because without ownership, there is no healing. Without reflection, there is no depth, and without change, love turns into resentment. The right woman will admit when she's wrong. She will value truth over comfort, growth over pride, connection over control. The wrong woman, however, would rather burn the bridge than walk across it with humility. If you find yourself doing all the apologizing, carrying all the emotional weight, and questioning your own reality while she floats above responsibility, know this: you are not with a partner. You are with someone who would rather protect her illusion than protect your bond. And no man should ever be in a relationship where one person hides while the other bleeds. Some people build with love, others conquer with fear. A truly destructive woman does not merely dislike what she cannot control, she seeks to destroy it. Because for her, control isn't just a preference, it is her oxygen. It's how she defines safety, status, and self-worth. The moment she realizes she cannot mold you, silence you, or redirect you, she will not try to understand you. She will try to break you. This type of woman thrives when everything and everyone bends to her emotional weather. She dictates the rules of connection, the boundaries of intimacy, and the limits of your ambition. But when you begin to resist, when you assert your truth, when you reclaim your purpose, when you rise into your own strength, she doesn't adapt. She retaliates. The resistance begins subtly. She dismisses your ideas, minimizes your achievements, makes you feel selfish for pursuing goals that don't serve her comfort. But if that doesn't work, her tactics escalate. She might humiliate you in front of others with sarcasm dressed as humor. She may gossip about your flaws, plant seeds of doubt in your circle, or even sabotage your progress, not because you failed her, but because you dared to live beyond her grip. She doesn't argue to find truth, she argues to regain control. And when control slips through her fingers, she doesn't reflect. She attacks. It's important to understand, to her, your independence is betrayal. Your confidence is defiance. Your spiritual, financial, or emotional elevation is a personal offense. Because each step you take away from her manipulation is a step closer to your freedom, and freedom is the one thing she cannot tolerate. The destructive woman cannot love what she does not dominate. She may smile at your strength when it serves her, but when it begins to expose her own weaknesses, her jealousy, her insecurity, her inability to grow, she will turn against you. She will rewrite history to suit her narrative. You'll be portrayed as cold, distant, ungrateful, or even abusive, not because you were, but because the story must end in a way that makes her the victim and you the villain. That's the only way she can escape the shame of losing control. What's more, if she cannot control you emotionally, she may try to control you socially, isolating you from friends, undermining your support systems, or manipulating others to take her side. If she can't possess you, she will poison your name. And if she can't keep you small, she will do everything she can to convince others you were never that great to begin with. This is not love. This is war disguised as relationship. And in her world, peace only exists when she is in command. The right woman does not fear your freedom. She celebrates it. She does not require submission. She inspires devotion. She does not see your power as a threat. She sees it as a mirror of her own. A woman rooted in self-worth doesn't need to control you because she already governs herself. But the wrong woman, the wounded woman, the manipulative woman believes love is ownership, and when ownership fails, destruction becomes her last desperate act. So if you find yourself walking on emotional landmines, if your growth feels like a crime, if your voice is punished instead of welcomed, know this: you are not crazy, you are not broken, you are not too much. You are simply no longer controllable, and that, to her, is unacceptable. But to you, it's the beginning of your liberation, because anything that must be controlled to be loved was never loved to begin with. A man's life is shaped not just by his ambition, but by his alliances. No matter how talented, intelligent, or driven you are, the person beside you will either multiply your purpose or poison it from within. Evil does not always wear a mask. Sometimes it smiles at you, sleeps beside you, and says, "I love you," with lips that secretly fear your power. This speech has not been about vilifying women. It has been about identifying patterns that destroy men from the inside out silently, subtly, systematically. These 7 signs are not abstract warnings. They are real, psychological weapons used by those who fear loss of control more than they value connection. She thrives on division because unity makes you strong. She derails your definite purpose because vision makes you dangerous. She feeds fear because faith makes you bold. She manipulates emotion because truth makes her powerless. She profits from your weakness because your strength makes her irrelevant. She hides from accountability because honesty exposes her. And finally, she destroys what she cannot control because freedom is her greatest enemy. But here is what you must remember. You are not here to be diminished. You are not here to tiptoe around dysfunction. You are not here to apologize for being a man with vision, fire, and depth. You are here to build, to grow, to rise, to lead. The wrong woman will make you doubt your worth. The right woman will remind you of it. The wrong woman will punish your voice. The right one will protect it. The wrong woman will try to control your path. The right one will walk beside you on it. So choose with clarity, love with eyes wide open, and never sacrifice your purpose for the approval of someone who fears your potential. Because the moment you allow the wrong presence into your inner circle, you don't just risk heartbreak, you risk your legacy. Guard it wisely,